Okay, guys, I will try to do history of the Colorado part 1. After we do the other stuff, I might do another one, but a quick overview of how it got from when I bought it right here to, as it is today. And I picked it up. I'm gonna go by the dates here slideshow on Facebook because I think that's the easiest way. Because I also have descriptions in here because I broke it a few times and I can't remember, everything. So this is when I picked it up. Took a picture at work, July 2nd, 2015. I can't believe I've had it this long. There it is, stone stock. We put it up on my friend's lift and we're just looking under it just for fun, just get some ideas. And it's amazing how clean two-wheel drive trucks can be. This has almost 200,000 miles on it. So this might look crappy to some people, but anybody that's worked on cars with 200,000 miles, this is pretty incredible here with all of the, fittings and bolts and just everything not being a total disaster under here is pretty legendary. So one of the first things I did was got some dyno numbers, totally stock, strapped it down, hooked it into the wheel, of course, and I struggled to make it hold gears, which you can see here is just trying a few different gears, but the summary horsepower here is about 100 horsepower to the tire. And this is a funny picture because I stopped at Craig Kish, my buddy that works at Collis Truck Parts, and I got a motor and seats because my seat was destroyed. Did I take a picture of this seat? Man, this seat's mint, but the other one I got in the truck was destroyed. So this is funny because the truck is picking up its new power plant. And then one other thing I did, the blower motor didn't work at all. So I just did some research and bought I checked out the harness, and the harness was completely melted. And this is the resistor pack, and that was completely melted. So I had to buy both. And then this is when I was unloading everything. And then I bought an Explorer rear for $50, and that's a 4L80E. I traded someone a TH400 setup that I had for. This was the van that it came out of. And then I bought this converter from my friend. He was going to use it in a different project. So I got an 80E flex plate, and this PTC converter my friend was going to use in a V6 supercharged Volvo setup. He hasn't completed it yet. It's very close. Turbo kit sneak peek. This was when Corey Johnson was building it. He was sending me pictures of the turbo kit while he was building it. So he built an unbelievable turbo kit here, which I'm still using that today. And that's when I received it and put it all on the shelf. And this is when I was just infatuated with it. I was like, look at this. I bolted it on because I had to. So that is the motor, the first motor anyway. The first one's always free, guys. You didn't know that already. And that's the 7875. So my first plan for this build was to build I never had a turbo setup that was punchy that made a good amount of power. They were always relatively laggy, or you had to wait for the power to come in. So I wanted something that was kind of would deliver power more like a supercharged car, just tons of power all the time. So I got a cam spec'd by Jarrett, and I told him I wanted just instant power all the time. Didn't really care about peak. And then I tried the 7875. And this was funny. This was when the truck was still stock. And Jamie and I went to go see the Lego exhibit in Philadelphia. And the goddamn alternator went bad and left us stranded in traffic. So we had to get it towed home. And then I replaced the alternator. Ridiculous. And then this was the gold box and transmission controller combo. I have never got to use this before then, so it was neat. And then I got 80-pound injectors, of course, and this was 188,000. Yeah, that's the mileage. Here's the transmission going up on the engine stand to do the HD2 kit. There's a whole video of that. I'm sure a bunch of you have probably seen it. We did the entire HD2 kit on an uncut video, end to end, because everyone has so many questions about it. And I'm like, guys, we just wing it and we install it. This is a dumb thing. The junkyards punch holes in the pans. So I welded the pan shut from both sides. It doesn't leak. It's awesome. Cleaned it out. Here's the Transgo kit. That's pretty much finishing the Transgo kit. And then when we were done, we found a piece of this snap ring in the pan when we first took it apart. So that's the only thing I had to order. There it is, busted. So then now that I had everything ready to go, one night I just rolled it in and I'm like, this thing's ready to get turbo LS'd. Here we go. I yanked out the 4-cylinder and transmission all in one shot. Made a hell of a mess on the floor. Tranny fluid pouring out all over. I did pull the alternator off and return it because I only had it for like 10 days. This is the clip for the transmission. Then I could finally put the pan on the trans. And then I put fittings in the transmission. And I test fit the engine. Just tossed it in there because you need to actually trim the stock mounts. I used current performance engine mounts. And you actually have to, the top of the mount like hits the engine mount on the V8. The motor mount's this big and it hits the motor plate, so you actually have to cut it so that the motor can sit in there. There's the converter, and what I did was I plasma cut holes out to bolt the converter on. The converter was a different bolt pattern. Test fit the turbo kit a little bit. Again, made sure I had to plasma cut this fender here a little bit to get the turbo to fit. The T4 flange goes into it a tiny. And then I cut the entire half of the crossmember out for the 60E because the 80E occupies its space. So I put a block of wood in just to hold everything up and straighten everything out. Get an idea for everything. And then this was missing the mount. It was ripped. It's a rubber mount. It was just torn off. So I had to get a mount before I could build out the mount. And then that was me just leveling everything off. And I was in awe of how much room I had because normally I'm pounding or cutting the metal out of here to just fit this connector for like a Fairmont. The Fairmont tunnel gets very small and yeah, you're kind of screwed there. So I was just laughing that I could like reach up and touch all the bolt holes. Then what I had to do was the intake manifold was rubbing the firewall material, so I ripped it out and then it was still rubbing, so I hammered the shit out of it. Then I had to hammer it some more. And then I had a broken spark plug. That's the motor and turbo sitting in already. It looks like nothing ever happened. It looks like right at home in there. And I wanted to put everything in the glove box here, but I just could not make all the wiring fit in there. And then I had upper rad hose. What I do is I go to the junkyard and I pull a whole bunch of radiator hoses out of things like PT Cruisers, Neons, like all sorts of weird S-bends, and I have a box of them. So whenever I swap something, I can just cut them or try them. And this was the stock upper rad hose, surprisingly, that went right on. No issue. Funny enough. And then I could not reach the wiring, so I ended up I had so much room in my trans tunnel, I'm like, I'm just going to blow a hole in my trans tunnel and run all the wires out that way. And that's what I ended up doing. And this is when we were going to cut the rear down because I'm like, engine and trans is in. I have to do very little. All I need to do is get the rear under this thing. So I pulled everything out of it, sprayed the shit out of it to clean it, took the empty housing over to my buddy Dyno's, and he cut it out. We cut 3 inches out of it. And they used a jig and lined up the ends, and we welded it back together. And then I also requested that we please weld D-rings to the rear that I could put straps through. Welded on there nice and neat. Very nice. Very nice. Took many pictures. And here I made a video also of assembling the rear. Putting the axles in, the brakes, discs, differential, lining everything up, and I have that all in an uncut video of me just impact gunning everything, and people laugh that you can't do this stuff, and that is the rear that has been in the truck the whole time. The diff cover's never even been off. Walboro 450, oil feed plate, flexible dipstick from eBay for the 4L80E. See, what I did here was, normally you can drill out the stock one, but on a 6-liter it has an oil cooler plate with oil cooler fittings. I didn't want to mess with it, and these are like $5 on eBay. I buy them a lot of times. And this is everything looking semi-professional here. Said starter installed, wired key on relay, used fuse panel wiring. Like, yeah, got a lot of shit done. GSD. I actually bought a lower radiator hose, a stock lower rad hose for a V8 car because it dropped right in and it was only like $30 on Carpart. No. Rock Auto. The hardware store, listen to me. The auto store wanted like $78 for this thing. They wanted an unreasonable amount. Anyway, Rock Auto had it for like a quarter of the price. That's the part number. This is me getting all the wiring done. Getting nuts and just connecting everything. And it's funny, it might look like a mess, but lay everything out, connect everything, power everything, make sure everything turns on, and then start putting it together and keep checking and making sure everything comes on. And then here I am doing a base flash for firmware for the gold box. Going through, checking all my sensors. Everything's looking good. I set up a base tune. That's the Walbro 450 in the stock basket. That's when I just tin can the bed like I always do. This is the 80E mount finally I got. The other one was completely destroyed. And then I built this hobgoblin here. This is beautiful. I just took some box tubing I had, and this is a clamshell mount for a small block. Like a Chevy 350. And I drilled out the head here so the bolt will drop through, and it is, I mean, you could drive over that with the truck. It's incredibly strong. Take a look at it. It might look ridiculous, but it is, I mean, it's better than this. This is like a 6x4 piece of steel that was holding the transmission in, and this is just what I had laying around. It works great. No problems with it. It's the same shit that's in the truck to this day. I put the hood back on. It looks like nothing happened. And then this is when I started to swap out the rear end. And then fitted the intercooler. That dropped in there, not that bad. I just had to trim a little bit of things around this rad support and some other things, and not a whole lot. Just had to get the intercooler piping in through the top. You can see where I cut a little bit there. This is when I was making sure I got the right size yoke, because I didn't have a yoke with the rear, so I was measuring up for a Ford rear. The guy, the nice man David from YouTube that made my drive shaft, I sent him all these measurements. We wanted to make sure we got the right pinion. These were just, man, I think these were like Moroso or something like that. Just some spring perches that I got that had a, I mean, they came with the triple hole so you could move the rear around if I needed to. It wasn't anything I needed. And then I just measured the axle tube and then the width of this. They're very simple. And then, bam. I just eyeballed the one rear, lined everything up, and I flipped the rear over and I measured the flat part, and then I measured the angle that the spring perches were on, and I just copied that to this 8/8 and literally dropped it in. Dropped it right in. We lifted it right in between the frame rail and the leaf spring. It barely fit. It almost hits the gas tank. Other than that, it's in there perfect. It looks stock, other than it has a totally different bolt pattern. And then I realized I'm kind of screwed. These are 6 lug and this is 5 lug, and I can't fit anything. This is the stock rear. You can see my angle gauge when I was measuring. I connected the stock fuel lines. This car for an 05 was still return fuel, believe it or not, and it's a Chevy, so the lines connected to the truck intake. Bam, feed and return, no problem. And this is where I started making sure stuff in the engine bay would work and just getting some stuff organized. And I have a Ford fan here that I'm just wiring and making sure it works. And like I said, I like to make sure stuff works the dirty way and sometimes clean it up afterwards. Stock fuel lines snapped right on. I used the 99 to 02 Blazer throttle cable. I put the Blazer throttle pedal in also. You can see I just self-tappered it in a bunch of spots and it's mint. It would actually pull too far. The cable throw was too long and I didn't want to bend the rod. So I screwed this piece of metal back in here and it actually stopped the pedal from going too far. Because what you can do is you can rip the cable, obviously. Oh yeah, and I put the brake calipers on like the bottom or something. I put them in the wrong spot when I bolted them on, like a total idiot. So I ended up swapping them here. That's just a note. Then I got some rims from Craig Kish because I realized I didn't have 5 lug wheels. So I bought some, I got some shit tires and rims from him. Some spares because Lord knows I need spares. And then this is a view from the front of that nice crusty Explorer rear. Output shaft. Measuring the yoke for Dave. Dave building the drive shaft. Doing an incredible job. Showing all the, man, this stuff's awesome. Run out, weld, everything. And then, yes, these are my 5 lug wheels. Bolted on there. I got just the same shitty, this thing is not that great, but it works good enough for me. So I like, you know, I have plenty of room mounted up where the exhaust was under the truck. Transmission cooler. There's the drive shaft. He gave it a nice red, white, and blue for me. And then, bam. Look at that thing. Ran my cooler lines. Parker push lock, 3/8. Best shit in the world. Slammed the drive shaft in. No problem. Drive shaft, tranny cooler, everything's looking mint. Back on the ground. In park. Stock shocks, stock leaf springs. Everything's nice back here. At least I can roll it around and throw it in park. I had the plasma cut a little bit more. I got my intercooler piping in. We're trying to make a mess out of this thing up front. What I should have done is gotten the straight fitting and then 90'd it twice, but, you know, we made do. So I had a bunch of weird pieces in that 90, so Joey Fowler made this. We had a review, remember? You might have to go back and watch this, guys, if you hadn't seen this before. But this is the shitty intake pipe, and I did a test for shitty versus pretty. And we made a really nice one, which is that periwinkle smooth S-bend that's on there now. And then this thing, and there was 0 horsepower difference at 600 horsepower to the tire. So that's a funny fact for everybody that said that this flowed terrible and it didn't make any difference at 600 horsepower. Look at it. Yeah, because it was almost up against the belt. It was touching the alternator and rubbing it. And, you know, it just wasn't, it was funny, but it was eventually going to give me an issue, I think. But we did what we could to make some boost. And then I made this. My buddy Joey's welder has a weird big-ass plug on it. So I run these funny ones. I get them from work. We throw out cables sometimes. So I put the 15-amp twisted connector on it. So I built him a twisted 20-amp connector to his full size on my 220. And there it is, pretty much ready to go. We hammered it out, got some boost ready to go, and put the front end on. And yes, that is us cutting and fitting intercooler pipes. Hand holding it with the Sawzall. And then I was doing good immediately. Obviously, you can see a nice burnout here. And then this was running and driving. 1 month, start to rolling burnouts. I think it took me 20 days. So me just had it out, hell raising, doing burnouts in front of my friends' houses. Rubber all over the place. And then I built a tailpipe for it, actually, if you can believe that. At one point, this thing had the small turbo and 3-inch exhaust and tailpipe, and I wanted to always hook up this AEM dial-a-boost. I put it on Fairmont, so I wanted to put it on this. Wired that in. Obviously, look at this. This is my key on and my constant power fuse panels that I hid in the airbag box. I took the airbag out. Put the 5/16 self-tappers in. I put this over the bed so water, like excess amount of water, wouldn't go in, and then also if I stepped on it, like my foot wouldn't sink because I actually used the truck for fun. I had a piece of a screen door here, and I just put it on that and razor bladed the edge. I ended up not keeping that because this was starting to suck in, and it did not seem safe to me. So I got raccoon stickers from somebody. This was completed. Those are my glamour shots. Standing up on a stool with some lighting. Here it is, going to fill up on some gas and get some more tires and everything else. Here is the stock rear, stock engine, and stock transmission that I sold back to Collis Truck Parts, where I bought the engine for the Colorado. So that came full circle. I picked up the engine from Collis and then swapped out the motor in the Colorado and then took the stock motor, trans, and rear back to Collis. Your visa to Australia has just been granted. This was after I posted videos of me doing burnouts. Aftermath of burnouts. Ah, yes, pieces to finish my tailpipe. Makes me uneasy, but it works. Oh, I was testing that stupid HP tablet. I did not like it at all. This is my tailpipe. Look at that, guys. Man, I got some tires and rims going on again. More burnouts. And here are my Mickey Pros for racing. Here's me moving Cisco equipment, as always. Driving around, doing burnouts, picking up more tires. Always tires, guys. Tires, mounting tires for life. This is Jamie and I doing some burnouts. We actually sent out a Christmas card with us doing burnouts like this. That's just Jamie doing burnouts in the truck. Frying them off. I made this to, because everyone makes those girly quote things, so. Oh yeah, I was having fuel issues. The theme for this truck is fueling issues. I ended up swapping out my fuel filter here. And then I put this 6 a.m. bulkhead in to alleviate fuel problems because I broke the motor and then I had issues and then I messing with everything and then I'm changing all the fuel stuff and then I find out that this hat has like a pinhole in on the fuel feed part. You could blow through it and it sounded like a straw that was broken. It was unbelievable. So this is why I put the bulkhead fitting on it. So then I put the bulkhead on and then ran it to the stock feed anyway. And it did good. Yeah, see now I have plenty of fuel. 10.6 air fuel. Look at it just bottom out. So then I started making good power. As you can see here, 696 tire. Almost blowing through the converter. Having plenty of fuel here. What I realized is that converter... Well, I saw immediately as soon as I started making over 600 horsepower, that converter was struggling. Driving in the rain, as always. Making good power again, 696. This was straight pump gas, no methanol. Then I ordered one guy that makes... He contacted me on the Sloppy page. He's like, I make Caltrax, like little bars for like Colorados, S10s, everything else. So I was like, yeah, dude, please. So I bought a set and he shipped it to me. I put a 4-port boost solenoid on it and I broke a piston. Yep, ran out of fuel again. And that's funny, now I know I cannot make 700 horsepower with one Walbro 450, so that was another fuel delivery issue. And then also straight pump gas is not that forgiving. And then also my ring lands, my ring gap was very tight on the top pistons. Every now, like I would get these 6 liters, and when you push that far without meth, the top ring would just close up and break. So it was a combination of running out of fuel and having too tight of a ring gap. Yeah, as you can see, it lifted this bitch right here and hurt it. So I bought an entire set of pistons, rods, everything, so I would have plenty of spares. And then what I did was just swap a whole bunch out and write bullshit on all these things just to be funny. And then here we go with mix matching the parts. This shit was in the oil pan, just pieces of piston and shit. Slapped it back together, put it back in. Loud valves. Sent me a valve to try. I had that on for a long time. That was awesome. You could put it through the muffler and then put it through the dump. It was really neat. Fresh spark plugs. Here I changed the fuel feed again because I kept having fuel issues. I didn't realize I was just plain running out of pump. Being an asshole. Here's Mark and I at Mark's garage putting the muffler in and doing the loud valve all at once. And then we ran more feed and return, trying to figure out what was going on. And then I broke the motor again. What do I have here? Oh no, I sold the motor. I sold this motor to Mike Dyno. So I was good, and then I started adding ethanol. Yep, started messing around with the content sensor. So that's what that was, guys. I'm sorry. It says right here. Why don't I just read it? I added an ethanol content sensor. So then I was messing around with ethanol. I bought a race pack for fun, which blew minds, but you know, I always wanted to try one, and the gold box supports outputting to a race pack dash, so I just wanted to try it. Can you blame me? It was cool. It was really neat. It worked really good. Setting it up, screwing around. It comes with a thumb drive. I screwed it in there and I offset it, and I didn't really like it. I couldn't get it to work. Finally figured out how got everything to work. More equipment. More messing around with ethanol. It's fun to change the, I was talking about the configuration and how I like it so far. More messing around with ethanol, just driving, obviously. Oh, I'm saying that the race pack is easily visible in direct sunlight. So that was a neat thing about it. Just driving it around in the snow and the salt. Oh yes, this is when I wanted to mess with traction control, so I bought a Hall sensor and I was screwing around. I know there's plenty of ways to easily do this, but I thought it'd be funny if I just welded a screwdriver head into the inside of this four-wheel drive hub. And it actually worked. I got wheel speed, and then this would pull timing when the rear wheels would go faster than the front wheels. So burnouts, driving around, more equipment moving at work. Yes, it was extremely cold last winter, 22-degree inlet temps. This is another prototype gold box that I was messing with for Mike. Mike was changing a bunch of things in the gold box, real-time clock, other things added in for integrated traction control, so I was messing with that. I painted it black and said it was Project Black Box, like Skunk Works, and everyone's like calling Mike, how do I get the black box? Didn't realize I just spray painted it. Still driving it around, just showing that I actually use it, scrapping hard drives for work. And then this is when VS Racing finally came out with the big ass T6 Billet S480 clone. And he sent it to me for me to try on the truck. And I didn't have problems with the truck at this time. And I'm like, well, when I upgrade, because this has a 5-inch downpipe and mine had a 3-inch tailpipe and it was already done. So I'm like, I'm going to test this out. We're going to mess around. And then I'll put the Billet 80 on, or we'll put it on some other car. Just size comparison. This was me on the dyno again, messing around, obviously. This is when we did the shitty versus pretty intake pipe test. And it made no horsepower difference. This is the same pipe that is on to this day. Look at the difference. 0 issues. Look at that. No horsepower difference. All 488, 488, 487, 485. Those are all the same amount of horsepower every pull. Getting my tires. This is when I went to the track. Staging lanes. 11.2 at 121. 7 PSI. This is when they were yelling at me for going 11.20 already. And then I hurt the damn thing again, which was, I'm sure it was boost and fuel delivery problems. Because as we learn, it takes me a long time to learn with this truck. I don't know why, but I continually ran out of fuel and had boost control issues. My buddy Ryan, Sloppy Mechanics OG. As I always say, I usually blow a rod out behind the starter. Yep, that's piston ring on the drain plug. That is my oil. And then I had chunks of weird shit in the throttle. Looks like my truck was snorting cocaine. This was in the oil pan. Look at this fucking ring hanging out in a chunk of something. That piston just exploded. Yep. Carnage. Carnage. This motor was done, obviously. And then I nicked the cam, which always sucks. You never want to nick the cam. Sometimes the damn cam and springs are more expensive than the motor. Yeah, look at that ring. Not broken, twisted into a fucking pretzel. So, I called up Craig again at Collis. I said, hey, I need another motor. 7 or 8 of the rod bearings are still mint, saving them for later. Yeah, look at those. Those look great. So I pocketed all that stuff. My turbo is packed with piston material. Yep. Since my turbo, this actually, I would have used it again, but it bent it. And it was rubbing. I would have just cleaned this up and thrown it on, but at the same time, remember I had this billet S480 that I wasn't using. So, oh yes, look at this mint spark plug. So here's the van. This was the one that had 248,000 on it, and this is the motor that's in the truck right now. 248,000, sludge puppy we called it. 04 Chevy van, express van, like I said. There she is. This is I stripped out the fucking bolts in my converter. I was on struggle street with this project. I have never stripped out converter bolts, and I pulled the threads right out of this damn converter. So while the motor was out, I asked my buddy Whack Shack, Ryan Ackerman, that owns the notchback Mustang with the twin 7875s on it, if he would clean it up for me. So he milled out the edges, and then we welded steel, what would you call that? Are they in here? Dowel inserts or whatever? Anyway. This, I pulled the oil filter off the motor I got from Craig, and there just must have been water like rained into this motor. Look at this. Pancake mix. So we called this guy Sludge Puppy. And look at this thing. It was completely filled with this yellow snot. And then this was Ackerman before. This is when it was all stripped out. What I actually did is I just drilled straight through this thing and put a nut and a bolt in it, because I had everything done and there was no way I wasn't driving the truck. It was so funny. When I broke the piston and put the motor back in, I stripped out these bolts. You can see it's just missing all the threads. I drilled straight through and put a nut and a bolt in it. It worked fine, and this is Whack Shack's work. This is beautiful stuff here. Look at that nice thick steel. He put them on there. Yes, look at my intake ports. They are disgusting. I bought a scrub brush. This is funny. People said to use Easy Off and a scrub brush. It did nothing. These were completely filthy still. I just gave up. I was like, fuck this, because I'm running the brush through and it's just throwing black ink everywhere. I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to run them dirty. I don't care. I don't give a shit. So then I always wire wheel the pistons and then I write all over them. I didn't get a picture. Maybe it's in here later, but I wrote Tony fucking Reiners and some other shit across these. So this was that filthy motor, and then what I did was, I don't think there's any good pictures, but you can see the floor. I put diesel fuel in my weed sprayer, and I sprayed this whole motor down with diesel fuel. Look how clean it is. It was so sludgy. I'm like, if I have oil pressure issues immediately, I'm going to be pissed off. So I actually cleaned the motor with just spraying it with diesel fuel and letting it run out. Then reassembled. Put the heads on. Diesel fuel bath. Put the current performance mounts on. Slammed it all back in. Oil pressure was good. Man, that was a good day, because that motor was looking rough. Then I got an adapter. I always get that T4 to T6 bolt-in adapter. And I use motor mount bolts. They're just long enough and just shallow enough to bolt right in there with the plate, not interfere. So then I'm like, well, Jesus, this is all in the way. I have to redo so much of my stuff now. This is what I didn't want to do when it was running fine, but now the other turbo is junk, so now I'm like, well, shit, what am I going to do here? And John Bewley at Lil John Motorsports was like, this China turbo might show some promise. Matt, can I send you a downpipe flange and an outlet flange? So this is Little John's flange that goes from 5 to 4 inch, and it fits awesome. And then this is the outlet, and it bolted straight on. So it was good for him to learn, and also awesome for me because he just shipped them over, wanted to see if they would fit. So this is the outlet for me. Otherwise, I would cut this off and weld some crazy shit on here. And this was funny. This is another funny thing that people like to look at. I'm like, Mike, it needs to, you know, we held everything in place and drew it all out. Look at that. That is on the truck to this day. Yep, just like this right now. Right back here. So that is as it is today. And then I got a 4-inch 90 and then welded it on and then just stuffed this catalytic converter I had laying around in here just to make it quiet so I could run it and check everything before I figured out what I wanted to do with a downpipe, just because a 4-inch downpipe, where the fuck is it going to go down here? Yep. Look at that thing. Isn't it beautiful? And then I got a 90 for my turbo. Obviously, I can't stand when these things are bent like this. It's an OCD thing. You guys, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I let slide, but this is like asking to get kinked and then have an oiling issue and ruin your turbo. This is funny. Someone sent me this. I think it was Josh Ricker. Yes, that's why I tagged him, I think. His kids were coloring something, and he sent me the picture of the crayon. Hood's back on it. Hood closes with that giant turbo. That was a concern of mine. I wasn't sure if it would close. Look at that. 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. There's my 90. Hell yes. So pleased that my 90's on. Now I can sleep at night. Yes, and now there's no room for the downpipe or anything else, so I had to get rid of my coolant overflow and the sprayer. And then I just plasmaed this, and I just dumped this 90 out here. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to drive it and do burnouts. Can you blame me? Then, this pissed me off so much. I have done this so many times and had no problems with spark plugs. I screwed up a spark plug immediately, like putting this motor back together, ready to run it with the big turbo and go nuts, and screwed up the threads. And I was like, do I just swap the cylinder head? I don't want to deal with this. I'm not going to drill it. This is called a back tapper, and you put it in and then screw it so it expands, and then you start on the good threads, and then you come out to like, because when you strip out the threads in the top of a cylinder head, you're only screwing up like the first 2 or 3 at the most. So if you drill and tap, you are redoing everything back into the cylinder head. It's just annoying. At least this goes in and it uses 80% of the good threads, lines you up, cleans up all the ones on the way back out. It works awesome. And then this here, I covered it. They're like, cover it with grease so it grabs the material. And then bam, 10 pounds, 572. Turbo is working great. Screwing around. Mileage on motor number 2. Yes, this is just a little unorganized here, I guess. 249,932. So I said 248. It's actually 249. So 250. It was 70 miles away from 2. By the time I got gas, it had 250 on it. Just race pack things at night. E85 again. This was finished and doing good as is. And this is when I had wastegate issues. So I wanted to, actually, I don't think I had issues so much. I can't remember if I had issues. I did have wastegate issues at some point here, and we will find them. But I wanted to put it on the turbine housing here. I've seen it done, and I've seen Aussies do it. And then recently the Mighty Car Mods episode came out where they did it. And I said to Dyno, let's just do that. That looks so cool. My housing isn't rusted yet. Let's just get it done. Messing around. Boost controller. On the dyno again. 735. Nice. This is when I took the turbine off. You can see my adapter plate here. Brought it over to Dyno's. He did his magic. He cut in there and used the hole saw. Used the hole saw. There it might be there. I don't know. Then we nicked the edges off, and then he cleaned it up with a rosebud, and then he welded that bitch right on there, preheated. Welded it on there. Looks mint. Still on there. It's been on there this whole time. I actually recircled it for fun because I only had this much length of pipe. And then on the street, it looked okay. Traction control, showing the traction control working, just screwing around. I went to an Advanced Auto when we were riding the dirt bikes, and they had a stock one, so it was fun to park next to it, obviously. I think they call it twinning. Messing around with E85 again. My dad washed the truck when I stopped at his house the one day. Look how clean it is. Jesus. He couldn't stand to see it dirty, so he actually washed it. This is when I was driving the truck all week because I had a ton of driving to do and I wanted to see if something would break. I wanted to do like the daily driver reliability test because something seems fine if you take it out once a month, and then when you drive the shit out of it, stuff like this happens. And it melted a fuel pump fuse holder here. It melted the whole fuse holder. Which I learned, a lot of people told me anything high amperage will just, it gets enough vibration that it generates heat. And any large fusible link is going to do this. You should have a breaker or some other way to power or fuse it out. Almost nothing in the back of the truck, just moving stuff for work, but driving it every day in the rain, everything else, mixing ethanol. This was my first, not my first failure, but another failure I had. This is the radiator hose that goes out of the water pump and down across the front and into the stock radiator on the left side. And what happened was, unbeknownst to me, as I would accelerate, the hose would lean back into the balancer, and the balancer was starting to rub it away. So what happened there is the balancer ripped the damn lower hose open. Yes, this is when I put 1,000 miles on it. I set the odometer up, and I was like, I'm going to put a hard 1,000 miles on this thing, and I did it in less than a week. And this is, you can see the balancer just edge this guy open. This is when I wanted to upgrade the fuel pump wiring because I didn't think it was adequate, and I wanted to put a second pump in. So this is when I ran the, I was like, I'll just get man, I cannot think, a subwoofer wiring kit. And I got a 50 amp breaker and an 80 amp constant duty golf cart relay. So this was for the two Walbro 450s then. And this is when I had the issue with the inline fuse holder, so I got the breaker. Also, what's nice about that is you're going to screw around and crank it or do whatever, you can just reset the breaker. And this is when I built fuel squid number 1, which proved to be inadequate because basically the issue here is the hardware store didn't have what I wanted. And this is 1/4 inch in and 3/8 out. So basically I'm taking two fuel pumps that have 3/8 outlets, putting them into 1/4 inch, and then putting both 3/8 outlets into 1 3/8 feed. And I think that's obviously one of the issues I had there. So I did two 450s and then out. This wiring is still on today, except for I upgraded these. Obviously, in that one recent video, I put like 4 gauge wiring right to my fuel pump. I can safely make mid 600s on ethanol, but I'm out at 700 tire. Time for larger injectors. Buddy Monkey Fab sent me an exhaust ring. It took me a while to use this. Put my sticker in immediately, though. Precision gear. I bought longer gears for the truck and have not used them yet to this day. Still 373s. This is the first set of injectors I tried that were cheap, were those 160s, and these were the ones that I had the most trouble with. I still have them, actually. For fun, I'm going to send them one time to Eric Durr to get injector flowed because they're such garbage now. Like, we put them in someone's car the other day just to get it running, and it ran like total dog shit. And I think just some of them have gone bad. Because they're total horseshit injectors. I thought this would be awesome and they would work great, but nope. Those are my 80s I took out. I put the 160s in. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge, double the injector, half the pulse width immediately. Awesome, but I made a video on this specifically. The longer, if you drive for a certain amount of time, those injectors get hot and they swell shut. They have like a polymer body inside and it swells shut. Me driving around. Nelson Race Engines is sharing videos of me doing burnouts. Awesome day. I started making more and more power. I'm making almost 800 tire on ethanol with the 160s, but the longer I drive, the worse they get. So that's the whole trade-off there. I made 796. What is this? Oh, I put a thing to make it quieter on my bullhorn. I had this bolt on. I had a straight pipe and then this, and this would knock like 2/3 of the noise out of it. My way of not dealing with it. Slash cut. I put a overflow tank on so I could be track legal. Driving it around some more, as always. Then, since I had so many issues with the 160s, I decided to try. A guy reached out for me. He used to be local, and he works for FID now. FIC, Fuel Injector Clinic. He works for FIC, and he was like, try our 105s. I tried out the 105s. You know, they were only a little bit bigger. And also, I was running out of fuel at the same time, and stupid pumps were running out at 800 tire. I didn't know that, but I know that now. That two 450s, a single 450 is only good for about 450 unlocked on ethanol to the tire, in my opinion. Some of you can make more than that, but you shouldn't rely on being able to make a whole shitload. So at 800 tire, you know, you need 2, and then you're running out. And then for more than 800 on E, you need 3, which is what I have now, and I have 0 problems. It took that long. Yep. This is my straight pipe for the track. This is my starter button would not work correctly, so I put this giant assembly line one that I had laying around, and that works beautifully to this day. It's just a little big. If you reach around in your seat, you can knee the starter. I've done that many times. This one is just hilarious. We call it the Bog Wiener Turbo, so I ended up just writing Bog Wiener on it. People kept asking me if I misspelled something, so I wrote boost, you know, intentionally misspelling it. This was part of the downpipe piece that I welded, and I did such a nice job, I wrote that someone's going to ban me. This is just using the truck to do truck things. Using the truck to do truck things. Just driving around again. During a tuning class, I did 590 tire on 9 pounds to the 3.5-inch exhaust and catalytic converter. Medium boost, don't come back. Yeah, I went to E-Town and made 1 pass. I can't remember how much boost. Fairly low. But that was one of the first videos where I went 1030 at 128 there. Pretty easy. Yes, this was with Mark, and we were test and tuning his Camaro. Driving around, I locked my fucking keys in the truck like a total idiot. Casey had to get spare keys from my house. This was when I weighed it before. It weighs more now with the other wastegate, other fuel pump, bigger fuel lines, more fittings, regulator. Didn't have enough gear or converter. Yep, that's when I knew that converter was just on struggle street, so I knew I would have to swap that. Also, so then I rode this line of where I have a big turbo, my gears and my converter and everything else just aren't perfect, so I just drove it around and messed around and did burnouts, as you guys know. Yes, this one won't even hold air anymore. More tires, again. Still kicking. Everyone was wondering if it was blowing up again. More fuel, more tires, jeez. Then, for fun, I thought, I'm like, man, I'll make this thing quiet and more drivable. And we did a full 4-inch exhaust, almost to the tailpipe, out of a Duramax exhaust that my buddy Ackerman scoped out. And this is where, obviously, I said 4-inch doesn't fit. So we used his porta-power and smashed in the firewall. And we made 4-inch fit. And then what's funny about this entire 4-inch exhaust was it was louder than the dump in the front. So I ended up getting rid of it, which I hate that I wasted all this time and Ackerman's time. But all I did was add a ton of weight, and it killed a whole bunch of power, and it was louder because all the sound was under the truck. It was dumb. It was stupid. I hate. That's why I end up putting it out of the fucking hood, because It's just, it resonates in the car so damn bad. Anyway, I'm like, well, time to get nuts. So I got a triple disc lockup spec'd for high, like I said, about 1,000 horsepower. I need a converter for 1,000 horsepower instead of one that blows through at 500. So I got this beautiful Jake's converter, spec'd by my buddy Cameron Powers. There is mine, the one that was in, all nice and hot from all the fucking heat. We went back up to Ackerman's and put the converter in. I was easily I just hammered right up to about 900. Out of injector again at 895. Now that the converter was working good, and we were changing plugs, I was having trouble in the dyno. Casey standing in the back for traction. Casey and Mason. And we were screwing around some more. Man, I forget what this was about. I was having trouble the one day at the dyno. Just fucking straight up struggle street trouble. And this is when I finally decided to put in the hood exit. I'm like, well, Mike, I'm not going to let your exhaust ring go to waste. Here we go. Full exhaust is for wusses. Yes, and then I had another wastegate because I was having boost creep issues. Running out of fuel and having boost creep issues. This is just some spare shit that I had laying around that I thought would be funny. Fucking diesel guys and rabbit ears. Yes, this is the hood exit in full glory here, fireballing. This is when I wanted to get my 210s in, and then never got my fucking 210s in the mail. And DHL marked them as delivered, and I tried for 2 months to get my money or injectors back, and got neither and gave up. This is a 4-inch loud valve that I was trying out, and we're still messing with it, honestly, because what I did was I screwed up and I prioritized the exhaust setup for this and put like a 2.5-inch afterthought on and thought that this would clamp and then open, but I have so much back pressure with this shut, it holds the valve shut, which is something that I did not have. It didn't happen with the 3-inch. We're going to try this on Matt Amy's. I still have it, and I got to get back to him, actually. He sent me a different actuator, too. We're still messing with it. These are the 210s. This is next to like a stock short flex fuel injector, showing how short they are. So this is the 210. This is a 25-pound truck injector. This is a flex fuel truck injector. This is the 160 that is total junk. And then this is the 210 with the hat on it so that it's the correct height for the stock truck fuel rail. All in a row. So this is when I'm like, I need more fuel, guys. So then I put these fucking awesome 210s in. This is in comparison with the 105s. 105 pounders and now live in Ackerman's notch. This is the 210s in with the hats and the stock truck thing with the pigtail adapter. Look at all that. Yep, and that's when I went straight up to 9 and change. And I was having fuel delivery issues then. Keep in mind, I still had 2 Walboro 450s in the tank, and I was dropping fuel pressure. I wasn't logging it or looking at it, but I was losing fuel pressure like over 830 tire because my VE would just run away, and this dyno is not loaded, so I can only make, when you're making a lot of power, it goes through the dyno pole in like a second or two, so it's hard to tell you're running out of fuel. So then I heard it again coming up here. I know I did. Chasing this 1,000 horsepower, I heard it. And then also what I did was I heard it right here. My plugs look good. So I'm like, can't be that bad. Oh yeah, look how clean my intake ports are from all the all the E85 boys. This is what I was laughing about when I said how dirty my heads were. Look how clean they are. Look, they've been in a parts washer. Took it apart. Yes. And now I finally got 210s. I borrowed a set of 210s from somebody, and then I bought these 210s and then shipped his 210s back. Tearing it apart again. Yep, I shortened some rods. Bearings look okay, rods bent. This is the crank hitting the piston. That's the crank hitting the piston because the rod's bent. So then this is the bent rod, and this is the straight rod. So I put 4 other rods in this motor. You can see they're even different color from being oil stained. So some of the rods are clean. The pistons all looked fine. I thought I wasn't having any other issues. Couldn't tell really what hurt it. That was my dad and me. Going back together again. And then, yes, this is when I confirmed I was having fuel delivery issues. So we're like, let's stop screwing around with the stock truck rail. And Scott Brown, a member of Sloppy Mechanics, wanted to donate these rails he had laying around and an actual aeromotive regulator and all these fittings. He's like, here, I have this stuff laying around. Put this stuff on your truck, do some more testing. I'm curious to see your results, which is awesome when people do that. Yep, they bolted right on, so I was like, good. I'm ready to rock. Driving around. That's what the 210's in, I believe. Ah, yes, and this is when I was adding even more fuel yet. I got this pneumatic fuel block. Because like I said, at the hardware store, I ran into a problem where that one was 2 1/4-inch fittings in and 3/8 out. And I'm like, well, this is bullshit, because if I want to put 2 or 3 pumps in, I'm going to need 3 pumps. All I have here, I thought it was just fuel delivery issue. I needed a 3rd pump at this time, but didn't do it. But I wanted to get a block that had 3 3/8 in, and it has like, this is like a 5/8 out. It's huge. It's 3/4 inch or something like that. Look at that. This is all, I was like, fuck it, here we go. Parker store, big ass fittings. So this is what I did for my rails. I did all 3/8 into the block, and then a dash 10, 12? It's a 10, it's 5/8. So 5/8 out of the fuel hat, 5/8 all the way to the rails, 5/8 into both rails. This is only a 1/2-inch rail, so that the neck for the fuel system is at the rail. So it goes from 5/8 to 1/2-inch, and then this is only 3/8, what I had laying around, and into a 3/8 regulator. So I got all that together, and then I built, this is all in a video where I show where I built the dash 10 bulkhead into the stock hat. Look at that beast, stock hat. And there's fuel squid number 1.0. And then I learned a lesson here where I put these fittings straight out, and they were hard to get in the tank. Annoying, just annihilating tires. More tires annihilated. Someone sent me this. I still have to test this. I want to test it. I found it the other day. I put it away and I lost it. But I found it the other day, and I would like to put that on. They were asking about it the other day. This is the only thing that I need to test yet. We need to see if that makes more power. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit this turbo. The inlet's too small, and then the outer ring is too large. I need to like duct tape it on and hope it doesn't go anywhere and try it, because I can't even get a coupler on it, and it's so tight up against this pipe I had to cut the edge of it out. But I would like to put that on and tape it on and do back-to-back pulls. This is when I had 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. We did some burnouts and donuts from my drone footage. This is when I was messing with checking the timing and some other things, and I had all sorts of issues with that. Self-inflicted. There's full videos on my timing issues. So I had fuel delivery issues, timing issues, bad injectors, not enough fuel pump. I learned a lot on my quest to make that much power. This is from the video where we did the 30,000 subscriber burnout. Jamie was holding the Aussie finger out the window, of course. Iconic. This is when I learned why my timing mark wasn't working correctly, because it interferes with the exhaust valve. So you actually have to disable the rocker to get in my opinion, to get a successful reading. That's the loud valve installed. This is the super ugly thing where I was saying that this didn't work out, because as you can see, how is this supposed to work correctly? I thought it would, but no, not enough power to open it. So what I ended up doing is clamping that open when I needed to. This, dude, I had so many issues with this truck. This is so funny. The zip tie holding the map sensor, where it was, I cut it or something working on it feverishly, and I put the the map sensor had moseyed over towards the turbo and it got so hot it delaminated. This is when I had trouble on the dyno and we were throwing tons of boost at it and I could only see 14 pounds. And it sounded like all hell was breaking loose. And I'm like, what is going on? So this is when I hurt my rings in my motor, when my motor would not make any power after this. Yeah, look at all my leak down is junk. Like, I hurt the rings running, doing something retarded. I still can't fully explain it, but I changed the rings. Yeah, I like glazed my cylinder walls. So then I took the motor apart again, and I scrubbed this thing down with the Harbor Freight 3 stone, slammed it back together with used rings. I always do this when I put the motors in. This is a tip. I put anti-seize on the block so it comes apart, because they can stick together pretty hard sometimes. Put it back together again. Oh yes, and this was when... Do I show it here? I don't have a picture of the Holley box. Just for fun, I talk so much shit on Holley, and I really haven't used it that much, and since I like to know and try everything, I took the gold box off and put Holley on, because so many people ask about it, and I was curious myself. I bought a Holley system. Everyone says I was sponsored, but I actually bought it just to try it. So this is me wiring in the Holley. As the other motor went in, I figured it'd be a good time. So here we are, wiring everything up, getting it back together, and then I started the motor just to get it running. This is not an accurate representation, but it's working. I got it all wired and working. And then nitrous outlet was like, dude, we want to send you a nitrous kit to fuck with. And I'm like, guys, I would love to fuck with a nitrous kit. I keep hurting my motor trying to push it on all boost. It would be fun to just get up to like 800 and spray her over the edge. This is when I added the flex fuel. I added it in later. It's not as easy as you would think on the Holley, so I added it in after I made sure it was running on gas. Driving around on Holley. And then I was still having boost control issues at the same time, so I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if we just put 2 wastegates on the housing? Just get totally retarded here. So we welded 2 wastegates on, and now this works amazing. I don't know what else to tell you guys. I can run... I have so much resolution, I can run 4 pounds and 24 pounds very easily. I think I could run 30. I've gone as high as 26 at 78% duty cycle. So I might be able to run 4 and 30. It might go that high. Just off of a regular 3-port boost controller, not even a 4-port. Then I added this in for fuel pressure, so I can data log fuel pressure, because I was continually running out of fuel still. I still had 2 fuel pumps in, and I was still having fucking issues being an idiot. So I'm like, you know what? Time to stop being an idiot. Take the fuel pressure gauge out, Matt. Data log your goddamn fuel pressure, you idiot. And then right here, I started cramming out some more power, and then realizing I was running out of fuel pressure again. And then I had the nitrous kit on here. See, I just made sure the motor was healthy. I didn't push it super hard. This was with the new rings. Nitrous kit showed up. Put the plate on, extended my thing here. I'm like, y'all kids want to see some shit? I was data logging fuel pressure. Yes, why did you install dual stage plate on your billet 80mm? Yes, I like to party. My bottle filled, and then this is when I finally crammed out over 1,000 tire on stock bottom end. I was chasing this for months, so I was very happy to see this. And then also what I learned here, it's a good thing this was not a loaded dyno and such a short dyno pull, because I dropped off fuel pressure like a rock. Like, fuel pressure was just on a steep descent when it made this much power. And this is when I realized I needed the 3rd pump. So then I made all my little stuff here. I was very pleased. Ethanol content on my dash. This is my 3rd pump that I bought. I knew immediately I needed the 3rd pump, and then you can see here where I fixed a few things. I put 90s on and I fed them all off in the corners, because you would try to, the opening is only that big, and then you would try to jam that fuel block in, and then with the 90s coming out of it, they just wouldn't fit, and you had to bend it worried me that I was going to rip the hose. So I put 90s on it, and then I staggered the length because you can put one pump in, the second pump in, the third pump in, and push them all to the back of the tank. Put the hat in, and you're done. And then, after the third pump was on, obviously this wire was not adequate. Melted the terminal. So then I put this fucking battery wire on it. And I saw it was drawing 35 amps. And then I replaced the feed and the ground, and it ended up going to 48 amps. I only replaced the front half. Later, when I replaced the back half and ran the ground up, it pulled way more. So there was an issue with the ground. Wasn't getting enough. Moving more shit for work, more tires, always. More shit for work. I cut this down. It was out at an angle, and I thought I would like it like that, but I didn't, so I ended up cutting it almost flush the way it is now. This was funny. My buddy Dave Dyno bought a Turbo Colorado, twin turbo, already done, and it was awesome. He asked me to drive it around and data log it and change if I thought anything needed to be changed. And honestly, I did a video review of that. It drove so good, and everything was mint. I was like, dude, I don't even want to touch it. I'm not even going to touch it. Just enjoy it. Just have fun. And he was happy that I just gave it a stamp of approval. This is when we did, we're having a baby boy. So we did a gender reveal. We did burnouts with blue smoke. This is when we were doing that. And this guy in this motorcycle was stopped like 40 feet back behind the light. I was in the turning lane. Everyone's like, your brake light's out. I have my blinker on. But this guy just was mean mugging. So Jamie took this picture after the burnouts. And then I just put a blow-off valve on for fun because someone sent me a blow-off valve, and I thought it would stir everybody up because I talk shit on them all day. I don't see the point, really. I just put it on for fun because I had it. This was at the gas station. I rolled into a gas station to get ethanol because there's a new sheets that has... I've been posting about it. They finally... The cost has gone down substantially there, so that's where I've been getting it. And then I went to the track, obviously, the other day. I posted this video. And this time of year in Pennsylvania, we have close to 0 density altitude, so I posted this. Obviously, some people have it worse. Other people are heavier. Other people... Whatever. Here's the facts. You get all the facts here, guys. So I drove to the track in Friday night traffic from Allentown into Reading. It took like an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer. Teched in. Did a schmedium pass, went 999. No one kicked me out. So then I tweaked a few things and went an easy 978, and honestly, easy 978. Nice safe tune-up. Truck didn't even feel like it was going 143. But it went 978 at 143 at almost 2 tons. And I drove home. There's my first pass. Those are the weights. That's my slip. That's just me swapping my tires. And then this is just some drag times fact checking here. It says like I'm making 8 and change for 38.50 to go 143. This is my data log, finally showing flat fuel pressure and air fuel the whole way. Finally. And that torque converter is working amazing. 1,000 RPM drop on the 1.2 and the 3.4. And you can see how efficient the converter is. I'm locking it right about here, and it only drops like 150 or 200 RPM. So it barely has any loss at all. So that converter is working amazing. And then just for fun, I showed my tune-ups here. And then this is the blow-off valve, obviously. Here's the funny thing. I didn't get to say this in one of my videos. I went 9s because I put a blow-off valve on. And then that's it. That's full circle. So that's how it is today. And then that's when I picked it up. So I'm not sure exactly how long this is, but I think I covered all the facts. There was a lot. That was a huge history lesson. So I'm going to upload this video then, just as is, and you guys can ask any more questions on top of that. But man, that covers a lot. Just the slideshow of photos covers pretty much everything. So, you know, we went from this little sick puppy here all the way to as it is today, and how my buddy AJ drove it the other day. So let me know again if you have any questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the history of the Colorado Part 1.